Welcome everyone. I think we will go ahead and get started because we have a lot of content to go over tonight. So we will catch people up if they enter late. Welcome to our next Clean Energy for All webinar, a flash of lightning analyzing the governor's energy plan. It is hot out, so thank you for being here on an uncomfortable evening. I hope everyone is staying cool, staying hydrated. My name is Melissa, she, her pronouns. I'm the Senior Distributed Organizer for Sierra Club Pennsylvania, and I'm guiding us through this webinar. I'm the facilitator for this series. Please let us know if you have any technical questions as we move along. Pretty typical Zoom setup. Stay on mute if you're not speaking. You can choose to start your video if you would like, but when we do get to the Q&A portion, keep in mind that we're recording. So if your video is on and you ask a question, it may end up in the recording on YouTube. Feel free to use the chat to ask questions as we go along. Sometimes we can answer them live as we're moving forward, but if we're not able to, then we will answer all the questions at the end. Feel free also just to hold off until the end. When we get to that point, using the raised hand function, which is down in the reactions menu. Okay, we do have automated closed captions running. So if anyone needs those, you can turn those on. And then, yeah, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We would love to hear where you're coming in from across the state, or if you're outside of Pennsylvania. A few community agreements. Please engage with kindness. No forms of discrimination will be tolerated. Speak from your own experience. If you find yourself speaking a lot, be sure to leave space for others. We're going to try to explain all of our jargon, acronyms, industry language. There's going to be a lot of it because we are dealing with a lot of jargon, acronyms, and industry language. So we've done the best we can with the slides to explain anything out. But if we reference something that you need a little bit more information about, please just put that into the chat, let us know, and we can try and clarify anything that doesn't make sense. We may ask you to continue a conversation outside of this space, if you really want to get into the weeds with some of these topics. We do also have our briefing session tomorrow, which I'll talk about a little bit later. There's always opportunity to talk in more detail, but we do have limited time tonight. And we might not have all of the answers tonight, right? There might be some unknowns, or your question might just be really detailed and some research is needed. But we will take note of those and then follow up with you. This is part of our Clean Energy for All series, our bi-monthly webinar sessions. So if you are interested in looking at any of our past episodes, you can check them out on the website. All the recordings and slide decks are there. And then stay tuned for our next one, which will likely be in August, about PJM. So there's an acronym for you. So yeah, stay tuned and you can learn what that acronym is and why it's important to you. Our agenda tonight is really, really focused on the lightning plan. That is all we're talking tonight. So there's going to be an overview of the 6 bills that... 6? Okay, the 6 bills that make up the lightning plan. I had a moment there. Woo, the heat, folks. And then we're going to have some ways that you can take action on the bills that are moving forward right now, and there will be space for your questions. So you are going to hear mostly tonight from our experts, Jen Quinn, our legislative and political director, and Nate Riegel, our clean energy program advocate. I'm an organizer, so I can help you get involved, but I'm certainly not as knowledgeable about any of this than Nate and Jen. So you will mostly be hearing from the two of them. I think with that, we can get started with the good stuff. Here we go. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jen. Enjoy, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this scorching hot Monday evening. So The governor's lightning plan, you probably heard it was announced January 2025. It's a comprehensive energy plan for the state, but we did not get actual bill language and what the plan entailed until late April. So it took a little while for us to sift through all 6 bills and then come up with this. But we're super thrilled to see that the governor is thinking comprehensively and planning long-term for the state when it comes to our energy needs. Next slide, please. So there are 6 bills, as Melissa mentioned. You'll see that they do love a really good acronym. Almost every bill has an EDGE, press, reset, pacer, but we do have it all spelled out as to what they do. So this is really just for your reference, and we will dive into each bill. Next slide, please. So starting off with EDGE, this is a tax credit bill. This is the Pennsylvania Economic Development for a Growing Economy. This establishes tax credits for milk, yes, milk, hydrogen, semiconductors, sustainable aviation fuel, and reliable energy. This was first established under Wolf in late 2022. And then these are amendments from the Shapiro administration to do some tweaks. Next slide, please. So what matters most to us in the bill is the Reliable Energy Investment Tax Credit. This provides tax credits to facilities designed to generate, deliver, and store clean energy produced at facilities located in Pennsylvania. And clean energy is defined as electricity generation that has CO2 emissions of less than 100 pounds per megawatt hour. So that means things like wind, solar, hydropower, geothermal, they all qualify. Now, natural gas, if it had carbon capture and sequestration, which none of the facilities do yet, that's many, many years out if it ever happens, but only then would a natural gas facility be eligible for this tax credit if it was paired with CCS or carbon capture and sequestration. And the tax credit is good for 10 years, January 2026 to December 2036, with a maximum $100 million per facility. Next slide, please. So what someone would have to do, or the facility would need to qualify for this tax credit, it would have to have a capital of an investment of at least $50 million, at least 10,000 work hours to put it into commercial operations, and it would have to have an output of at least 100 megawatts for a new facility, or if you're expanding a modified facility, an additional 100 megawatts. And very importantly, it has to deliver electricity to the grid. In this age of crypto and AI data centers, we want to make sure that if we are giving tax credits, that it is going to support and improve the grid and not to very specific business entities that are doing things solely behind the meter. And then there's also a tax credit for a reliable energy storage facility, which refers to batteries. The battery would have to have a maximum facility output of at least 10 megawatts. So again, we were happy to see something in there for batteries also. Next slide, please. There's also a geothermal tax credit in there. Again, happy to see this. It would really need just one of these things to be located on an environmental justice area, on a brownfield site, or owned or operated by a municipality to be eligible for the tax credit. And it would require a $25 million investment, and they could receive a maximum of $5 million with an annual cap of $40 million for the total geothermal tax credit. So again, something good for geothermal and clean energy amongst some of the other less desirable things in this tax credit. Next slide, please. Speaking of less desirable, the hydrogen tax credit, this was a big part of the Wolf administration's plan. No one has taken advantage of this tax credit since it's been available over the past few years. And this version of the tax credit makes it easier for folks to take advantage of. It sort of lowers all the standards. It expands from having to occur at a hydrogen hub to anywhere in Pennsylvania. It also lowers the investment from $500 million down to $100 million, and also lowers the job requirements currently from 1,200 all the way down to 200. So again, they want people to take advantage of this. They're trying to make it easier for folks to develop hydrogen in Pennsylvania. And next slide, please. I think that was the status. So this is a priority for the administration. It's a priority for labor. It did pass out of the House already in late May, with a few Republicans voting yes, most voting no. It is stuck in the Senate now. We have no idea what the Senate version of this would look like. We know they're thinking about it, but we do think it would bear probably very little resemblance to the version that the House passed. So if it does come out, it'll have a lot of other amendments and could look quite a bit different. And again, one of the big questions that we're all wondering, does the Senate want to move anything that the governor could claim as a win? We don't know. The Senate is a very difficult place. So we are watching this closely. We are hoping that it could move because there are a lot of good things in there on balance, but we just don't know what the Senate wants to do. And I think that wraps up Edge, and I think we're going on to press. Yes, so press is probably the most or one of the most important bills in the package for us. This is the Pennsylvania Reliable Energy Sustainability Standard, House Bill 501. This updates our alternative energy portfolio standards. So those of you who are not familiar with the AEPS or the Alternative Energy Portfolio Standards, they were established 20 years ago, and they require 18% of our electricity be generated by renewable and environmentally beneficial sources. Next slide, please. This is what those sources look like and how that 18% is broken down. Tier 1 requires 8% and Tier 2, 10%. So there's that total 18%. Tier 1 has the cleanest sources, wind, solar, geothermal. And again, this is currently where we are with AEPS. Fuel cells, biomass, and only a really meager 0.5% of this 8% needs to come from solar. So that's a pretty embarrassingly low standard. And then only in Pennsylvania would you have things like waste coal and the burning of municipal waste being any sort of environmental positive, but this is Pennsylvania. We understand the politics. So this is where we are now. Next slide, please. And then press would increase those tiers. Tier 1 would be 35%, and Tier 2 would be 10% of our energy mix. And so here we have some little markers of, red are things we're not too happy with compared to the current standard. Blue is good, and the pink is sort of questionable. So in Tier 1, we do have advanced nuclear and small modular reactors in there. Fusion, something that doesn't even exist. We do have some concerns with nuclear waste, but again, SMRs are still in the distant future, and fusion, who knows when that will happen. But we did see distributed generation bumped up from Tier 2, so getting that move from Tier 2 to Tier 1 was a step in the right direction. And then, we see natural gas or coal using clean hydrogen. That's not really something we want to see in there. But again, no one is doing this sort of co-blending of natural gas with hydrogen. So again, how big of a problem is it? We don't really know since it's not happening. And then again, fuel cells and biomass and storage all being bumped up into Tier 1. So these are all positives. And again, the big increase of Tier 1 from 8% to 35%. Super happy to see that. Next slide, please. And then we do have a Tier 3 also. Certain things were demoted, which is good. We saw waste coal demoted and municipal solid waste all put in this smaller tier. Smaller tier means, they get a much smaller piece of the pie and will be less of our generation portfolio. And so, yeah, this is a huge step in the right direction. This is, 35% by 2035 and 50% by 2050, a huge increase from the current 8%. Next slide, please. And this is a little pie chart showing where we are now. On the left, AEPS 2024, what our breakdown looks like. We have a third of our energy coming from nuclear, about half from fossil fuels, and then the 18% from the AEPS. Press by 2035 really flips that around. We still have nuclear being at about a third, but then fossil fuels go all the way down to 17%. And then we have the AEPS making up about half. So a huge step in the right direction with press and what sources are generating our electricity. Next slide, please. The status of press. It was voted out of House committee on June 2nd. So that's fantastic. That's a huge reason to celebrate. But the question now is, what will the governor do? What will House leadership do? We don't know, right? We are hoping, we are pushing, we are working for them to get them to do a floor vote. We think it would be wonderful if the House could pass this over to the Senate. I did flag some of the sources in there that, we're not super happy to see in there. But I think the thing about this bill is that on balance, it's a good bill. We don't get everything we want in there. None of the stakeholders are getting everything that they want, but it is a big step forward and a hugely important piece of legislation. So hopefully there will be willingness to compromise on press given the diversity of sources in the bill. Next slide, please. All right, so On to reset. This is one of the more controversial bills in the package. Folks may have been getting some emails from various groups about this recently. This is reset, the Reliable Energy Siting and Electric Transition Board. It's essentially establishing a board that would site generation facilities larger than 25 megawatts within the state. This does not apply to transmission or distribution or pipelines or anything like that, just generation facilities. So it would establish a board. The board would consist of the folks on this slide: DEP secretary, labor and industry secretary, the president of the building trades, which is a union, president of the Chamber of Commerce. They would have final say in determining where facilities are located within the state. Next slide, please. So how it would work: the board would issue a certificate of reliable energy supply that would allow facilities to move forward into construction. When a certificate is issued by the board, a municipality cannot require any additional approvals or conditions that delay or prevent the construction of one of these facilities. So one of the questions we have is, what tools can the municipalities still use when it comes to setbacks and screening and height requirements? And we just don't know, but it does take a lot of control away from local municipal governments when it comes to siting energy facilities. And the applicant, has a very thorough application process. They have to consult municipal governments. They have to do an environmental impact statement, and DEP would still need to issue all necessary permits. So there is a pretty rigorous process that they've developed for the siting and the board approval. Next slide, please. So the board cannot issue a certificate if the proposed facility is located on property that has been zoned residential prior to January 1st, 2024, but all other zoning would be open and available. And they also cannot take a sort of second bite at the apple if they have already been denied by a local government. They can't then go and seek approval of the reset board. Next slide, please. So what's good about it? What's bad about it? The bill says they want to increase statewide coordination when it comes to siting energy projects, which is great, but there's no statewide coordination mandated anywhere in the bill or defined. It removes local barriers to more wind and solar. So the intent of this bill is to remove those barriers that are halting wind and solar projects. But it sort of does this by removing control from local governments, right? They can no longer say when and where a facility will be located in their municipality. It's up to the board. Another pro, it'll build more electricity generation. We are approaching sort of a crisis when it comes to electrons on the grid and demand outstripping supply. But it applies to all energy projects, right? So it could apply to gas projects and nuclear projects, and they would still have the siting authority. And there are also private interests on the board, like the Chamber of Commerce and Labor. So we are still figuring out where we are when it comes to reset. I think its intent is good. It's still problematic in the way it goes about it. So we will be keeping a close eye on this. Next slide, please. There were 2 hearings held in early June in the House Energy Committee. We will be sharing the links to folks on the briefing tomorrow, but I did learn that this bill will likely get a committee vote this coming Wednesday in the House Energy Committee. So if folks are interested in that, please feel free to weigh in there with the chair, Rep. Fiedler, and Rep. Causer, if you have opinions on reset. And I think that was my last slide. I will turn it over to Nate. Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so first we have House Bill 503, PACER. But in order to discuss PACER, we need to discuss RGGI a little bit, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is a program that Pennsylvania, I guess, started attempted to participate in, but has been held up legally since 2021. But the intent of the program is to have the fossil fuel power plants basically pay for credits for the carbon dioxide that they're emitting. So next slide, please. And oh, that's nice. There's a nice map there. So as you can see, there's a lot of states already participating in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, RGGI, and Pennsylvania. As I mentioned, it's held up in court. There were oral arguments, but I think that's on a future slide. So I'll focus on the how RGGI works here. So there's over time a decreasing amount of carbon. That's the cap where it basically leads to a price that then gets put on the carbon dioxide getting emitted from power plants. Uh, when those purchases occur, the revenue from that gets returned to the states, and they can invest that in communities. Next slide, please. All right, so what we have here is due to a governor's working group that was convened in April 2023. The recommendation was that Pennsylvania have a cap and invest program specific to Pennsylvania, and that would address a lot of the things that RGGI was trying to address, but it would be Pennsylvania specific. So this would apply to power plants over 25 megawatts. DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, would be determining, the carbon dioxide limits, the carbon limits. Then the result would be very similar to RGGI, where the power plants would need to buy the credits, in order to match their emissions. And that limit, that total carbon limit, would decline over time, very similar to RGGI. The proceeds, however, are we'll say a bit more rigid when it comes to how they would be invested back into Pennsylvania here. The auction would be allocated to very, very specific programs. And I think we'll get into that a little bit more. But one condition of PACER is then Pennsylvania would not participate in RGGI. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, this is the slide that everybody likes to ask this question, so I'm glad it's well, we can cover it in a bit of detail here. So 70% goes right to the consumer protection account, and this would go right basically to the example given is that goes to the consumers toward their utility bills. So it goes to the consumer protection account, and then that account gets used, as rebates. 10% goes to the energy transformation account, and there are a lot of different projects that can qualify for energy transformation accounts. Some examples here, carbon capture and storage. Like Jen said, when that becomes we'll say viable, that may be more popular. What I think would be extremely popular right now would be the well plugging, and then we have the transit and electric vehicles. Demand response, energy efficiency, which, by the way, you're going to hear about more energy efficiency in the very near future, and renewable energy development. 10% gets put into the workforce enhancement fund, and that also has a variety of different types of workforce, we'll say, components that funding can go to. Then 10% goes to the low income support. So LIHEAP, that low income home energy assistance program. Next slide, please. So here we have some pros and cons, just comparing PACER to RGGI. Right now, RGGI is a regulation, whereas PACER is legislation, and legislation, as the slide indicates, there is more durable than a regulation. The economic incentive is comparable, but it allows some flexibility. There's no need and I'll have to explain just a little bit about there's no need with the legislation to go through a rulemaking every time. Like if Pennsylvania were to adopt Reggie, every time the Reggie caps were changed, that would likely go through a rulemaking process, which is we'll say long, cumbersome, whereas the PACER would not be subject to that once enacted. Now the cons are Reggie is a more efficient policy, and the proceeds, more of it goes into the reinvestment for clean energy, which then achieves the climate and the pollution goals faster. Next slide, please. And here's the status. And I don't like just reading slides, but a lot of the wording on this slide is I can't find better wording for it. So very controversial, and that is the truth. It is extremely controversial. It's going to be a challenge when it comes to political action. The only way, that third bullet there is basically the only leverage for PACER would be if Reggie, gets upheld by by the Supreme Court, and which would then allow Governor Shapiro to make a deal. So right now, the status of Reggie, Supreme Court oral arguments already occurred. No decision yet. The decision can happen, anytime, but very much not likely until after the November elections. I don't think any of the justices, would really want to take the risk of weighing in on this prior to that. But, next slide, please. Oh, and this is my favorite, so I get excited about this. Hopefully you're all smiling and excited too, because this is really a great bill. So here we have community energy. So last year, you may recall community solar. This is very, very similar, but it has the added renewable natural gas / methane digesters added to it, in addition to the community solar, up to 5,000 kilowatt projects. And this is exciting on multiple levels. One, well, I better just stick. I get ahead of myself. I get so excited about this. And there are additional incentives for development for community solar projects based on where they occur. So if they were to occur on brownfields, that now you can have a larger project just because of it being located on brownfields. And we'll say community solar is especially well suited for areas that may be like abandoned mine lands and that type of area. But the idea here is customers subscribe to portions of a community solar installation or the renewable natural gas, if primarily in an agricultural setting, and they receive bill credits for that has guaranteed savings then on their utility bills. Next slide, please. So what is community solar? I got a little bit into this, but it's we'll say it's a larger project than residential rooftop solar, but it's smaller than some of the large, grid scale that go into the transmission. They are what's considered like a local, so it's more of the distribution company side of the grid as opposed to the transmission side. You have a solar project, you have somebody that runs the program, people interested in participating then apply, they sign up, they then get the credits from the renewable energy that is developed from the community solar, and those credits go toward their utility bills, their electricity bill. Methane digesters, we'll say the principle, the program works quite similar. it's just a different mechanism as far as the energy production. So we see here in this diagram that it's a manure goes into a digester, often thought of as a anaerobic digester. You may hear people say, uh, and that leads to gas being produced that can be used for either heat or energy. And the other byproduct is you have the solids and the liquids that can be used as fertilizer and as bedding. So very, again, heavy emphasis toward the agricultural setting, where even the byproducts are useful after the gas is produced. So this is that's the component that was added to the community solar, and that is also what is making this bill a little bit more popular with some legislators and with the agricultural community. Next slide, please. All right, and here's where we're at. It passed the House May 7th, so that's congratulations. Wow, that's awesome. But now it is in the Senate, and we don't expect it to be easy. The whole net metering issue, it was a problem that was identified last year, and it's going to be an ongoing problem with this bill and any other bill that is solar related, probably in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is the one where I doubt anybody is as excited as community solar, because community energy, that's really exciting. But the way I look at energy efficiency is it is the practice that goes under the radar. You have the potential of having a lot of bang for the buck when it comes to energy efficiency, but for some reason it's not as flashy as the community solar or just solar or other type of renewable energy. Everybody gets excited about the renewable energy stuff. The energy efficiency is okay, but trust me, it's awesome. You're going to hopefully get excited about energy efficiency. Next slide, please. Oh, you know what? Let's go back one, because I focused so much on we'll say the benefits of energy efficiency. I should give a little bit of the background right here, the history of Act 129, Energy Efficiency Law of 2008. So this law already exists, and it's directed toward the utilities, and they must assist customers in reducing electricity consumption and meeting specific targets. If these utilities don't do what's required of them, they face fines. And what you'll see is that these programs that the utilities offer are paid by a small surcharge on electricity. So now we have an understanding of what Act 129 is, and House Bill 505, Energy Efficiency and Conservation, thank you, is basically just reforming this. So now we still in the Act 129, we have what's offered. Well, we have rebates for appliances. Some of the distribution companies emphasize different components here, but we have rebates for appliances, equipment, and projects. We have energy audits that are available through some of the EDCs, electricity distribution companies, custom projects, education programs. So if you have children and they come home from school with brochures, that's an example of the education programs. But unfortunately, as we can see right there on the slide, the offerings have not kept pace with best practices. We have better best practices available now. Technologies improve. We have just better practices. So hopefully this reform can leverage some of these best practices. But there's okay, that'll work. Let's focus here then. We want to look at what are some of the problems with Act 129 and what are the solutions? Act 129, as it is right now, is very inflexible. It has a cap on the program budgets, which means that the actual impact of Act 129 is limited. The solution is making that cap flexible and allowing it to increase with inflation, which right now it currently does not increase with inflation. So this House Bill 505 would fix that, would allow that. Another problem is only measures that save electricity are allowed, and only electricity savings are counted. Now, the House Bill 505 has some wording changes. So now, instead of it being focused solely on savings on electricity, it's savings on energy, and it also allows for pre-weatherization measures. So we'll say a more holistic approach rather than a very, very narrow focus. Another problem is the industrial customers that they're constantly pushing back for not meeting, for Act 129 not meeting their needs. So House Bill 505 attempts to address that. They direct the industrial program review and recommendations for improvements. Another problem is Act 129 only has penalties for non-compliance. So basically all it has is a stick, whereas the House Bill 505 offers a carrot now. So an incentive for over compliance or I exceeding, the compliance standard. And the final problem here is Act 129 currently is it prioritizes short-term savings. And that's, when you're looking at energy projects, a lot of them have long lifespans. So focusing on short-term savings doesn't match, we'll say, the metrics of an energy project. So the solution is now we have a cost effectiveness test allowing for a longer time frame when it comes to rating these measures. Next slide. And here's where we're at. This bill was referred to the Consumer Protection, Technology, and Utilities Committee, very long committee name, on April. Wow, and I'm losing track of time. That's actually tomorrow that the hearing is occurring in that consumer committee. So 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, we're going to have a hearing on that. And next slide, that may be it for me. So I'll pass it back.
Right. Thank you both. I'm not seeing any questions right now in the chat, but folks, get ready because we're going to talk about ways that you can take action right now. And then as we're doing that, start pondering some questions you have for Jen and Nate. So what can you do right now to act on the good things that are in these bills? So starting with press, so that is 501. We have a two-step ask for you. So the first one is to call the Democratic leader in the Pennsylvania House, Rep. Matthew Bradford. So you can call because of his leadership position, even if you're not his constituent. And then step two is emailing your state rep to ask for their support. If you go to that link, which I am going to attempt to drop the link in the chat. Let me see here, even while I'm screen sharing. Yes, that link is going to give you, all the details that you need. So it's going to give you the phone number for Rep. Bradford. It's going to give you a sample phone script because you're specifically asking him to prioritize bringing press to a vote in the House. And then for your state rep, you're asking for them to support it more generally. So if you click into that link, you can do both of those steps, and then you can check mark the box that lets us know that you made the call and you also sent the email. House Bill 504, community energy. So one of Nate's favorites. So we are asking for your state senator to support House Bill 504 because it has passed the House. So you can do that on our second link, which again, gonna get this into the chat. Here we are. So you can click through there. You can, there is a standard message. You could write a personal message as well. And then while you're on that screen, after you fill out all your details, there is an additional question that says, will you show support for community solar by taking a photo in front of your county courthouse? If you are interested in participating in our photo project, click that check mark box and then you will hear from me. I will email you with the details. We will send you a sign. So the sign looks like the graphic on the screen there. And then what you'll do is write in your location, something like, Lancaster residents want community energy, or, York voters want community energy. So you can write in your own kind of location and who you are. Take it to some kind of identifiable government building. It doesn't have to be your county courthouse. That's just an idea. But just somewhere that is a public land, a public space that represents your community, and take a photo, and then you submit that back to us. So essentially, we're building a photo petition of folks across the state who support community energy. So all of that can be done at that link. And then we want you to stay informed. So these bills are changing, as they move through the process. There's new things, there's old things, there's, changes we like, changes we don't like. You want to stay up to date with all of that. So sign up for the briefing. That is our regular legislative update series. They're 30-minute bite-sized sessions. They happen at Tuesdays at 5 o'clock. They're not weekly right now. So if you go to the link, you'll see we have one happening tomorrow. And then once you're on the list, you'll get the updates about when they happen moving forward. You can also watch the past episodes from this year as well at that link, which again, let me see if I can get that link for you. And then the other team that I hope you'll consider joining is our chapter advocacy team, or CAT. So this is our volunteers who really want to engage in advocacy, in lobbying, in rapid response, both at the state and federal level. CAT meets once a month, the first Thursday of every month, except we are not meeting in July. So what I suggest is that you sign up through the CAT website on our volunteer interest form, and then you will get the invitation to our August meeting, and then you'll also be on the list for our email newsletter where we send out a list of actions you can take. So those links that I had shared before about press and community energy, we collect all of those in one place every other week, along with, federal related things, send those out to you so you can just click through, make a difference on a regular basis every month. So I hope you'll consider signing up for CAT as well. And I think with that, I'm going to stop screen sharing, and then we can take a look at if we have any questions in the chat. So the first one is from Kristen. Will the links be emailed after the call? Yes, tomorrow you are going to get everything that was included here, the links, the slides, as well as a recording of this session once it is processed. So that should go out to you at some point tomorrow. Then we have a question from Michael. What type of hydrogen is being included in press? Who composes the board for PACER, and what is their term? Who establishes the cap in PACER? So we've got 3 questions there. Whoever wants to go ahead and get started with those.
Sure. So I think the hydrogen that's being referred to is in EDGE. There is natural gas blended with hydrogen in press, but that's a percentage. And I don't think it makes a distinction between if it's blue or green hydrogen. But for EDGE, so this is the interesting, clean hydrogen in the EDGE tax credit is defined based on the 45V tax credit from the federal government. So it has I think an emissions rate of like no more than 4 kilograms. But the question is, where do things stand with the 45V and how does that impact edge? So it's supposed to be a cleaner hydrogen, most likely green or blue, but so the question is that how does the 45V impact edge? And we're all wondering that, and the administration or the prime sponsors have not addressed it, but I have a feeling it might happen in the Senate if anyone wants to move it forward. There'll be clarifications there since 45V may or may not exist. And then I don't think there's a board in Pacer. It's probably the board in Reset. It was on one of the slides. It's the DEP secretary, the secretary of Department of Community and Economic Development, the president of the building trades, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and then a few others that I can't remember. And then I don't know what their term is. I don't think there's a term. I think they're just on it forever. And then the cap in Pacer, so this would be the Pennsylvania version of RGGI, the cap on carbon emissions, that would be established by DEP. So the Department of Environmental Protection would establish the cap on Pacer. I hope I answered most of those questions. But yeah, we're all still trying to figure out how what's happening at the federal level is impacting things at the state level.
And then Howard asks, for EDGE, how does the requirement for delivering electricity to the grid interact with PJM's slow walking renewable energy projects?
Well, I guess it depends on PJM has a very long queue. Nate, feel free to chime in. I would assume that a facility that is receiving a tax credit through EDGE would not receive any special treatment by PJM. They would just be put in the queue and have to wait their turn. There are some efforts to reform PJM, but I don't think EDGE would do anything to prioritize a facility. Are you aware of anything like that, Nate?
I'm not aware of we'll just I'll start with saying I think you accurately explained that. The one other consideration to think of when you're thinking of we'll say the EDGE eligible projects in PJM is some EDGE eligible projects may not be subject to PJM requirements depending on where they're connected to the grid. If they're not connected to the transmission, if they're connected to the distribution part of the grid, they may not be subject to the same, we'll say, long and not moving queue of PJM.
I think I didn't want to get into this because this is complicated, but I'm happy to discuss this further, Howard. But I'm pretty sure there's something in EDGE for surplus interconnection. If you had a coal plant that was only operating at 50% capacity, you could locate a clean facility there that could use that excess interconnection. I forget how the tax credit is structured for that, but it would allow that. And that's a really important thing, to use additional transmission capacity that's just sort of sitting there that is in EDGE. But I didn't want to get into it because it's kind of complicated, but happy to discuss that with anyone offline.
Any other questions from folks? Feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat, pop off mute. Everyone's too warm to think of questions. Oh, thanks, Howard. All right, so if Pacer becomes law, what's to prevent the DEP from setting a cap so high it's ineffective in incentivizing renewable transition?
Within House Bill 503, it has a process that DEP has to go through when evaluating like how they're implementing the program to make sure that they're providing the balance, basically that the governor always says, there's that 3-part balance of energy reliability, addressing climate change, and addressing energy jobs. So part of that is working with the consumer advocate and I don't remember who the other parties were, but DEP has to consult with other entities when they're going through that process of making revisions over time when it comes to the cap and any other component of the program.
Okay.
And as long as I'm talking and nobody else put a thing up there, I'm going to put in one more plug for energy efficiency, because I know people don't get as excited about it as what they should. But think about right now the impacts of PJM, and everybody's increasing electricity prices. Energy efficiency type projects are one thing that everybody can do to help reduce their electricity bill. So keep that in mind. And get excited about energy efficiency.
All right, folks. With that, I think we can close early by a touch. Maybe we'll see some of you at 5 o'clock tomorrow for the briefing. Even if you can't join us live, sign up, because we send the recordings the day after of those as well. And you get a really cool notes document that puts together everything that's covered in the briefing as well. So really hope we will see more of everyone. Thank you for tuning in, staying tuned into all of this. Recognize that it's dense. There's a lot to work through. We're here to help you work through it, right? So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. And with that, I will release everyone into the hot, steamy evening. So take care of yourselves.